Hey folks, see if you've ever had this problem. You're trying to eat a little healthier, but you're in the grocery store aisle, you're looking at packaging, nutrition labels, and they're so confusing, you don't know what's good for you and what's not. Well, this is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Finding better options for the whole family is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. Just scan a product and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. This is how my wife and I found our new favorite snack, IQ bars. Sometimes I eat one in the morning with my coffee, sometimes just later on in between meals. They also have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in the family. Maybe you have someone who needs gluten-free food, somebody that has a peanut allergy. Well, no more scouring ingredient labels when you can just filter it all on Thrive Market. My wife and I often use the high protein filter to stock up on things like Sieti chips. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCAT for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATT. thrivemarket.com/TCAT. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 415 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Awesome. You and I just finished up our weekly Patreon thing that we put out every week, and it's kind of shocking that we are as close to Christmas as we are. Kind of snuck up.
Yep.
Went very quickly.
Did.
So this is officially our last episode of the year.
Yeah. Got to wait till next year to hear more.
Yeah, we're taking the last weekend of the year off, which we normally do somewhere around Christmas, just to, recharge the batteries and get ready for a new year.
We do.
Which I'm excited for.
And I always have that recovery period after the wrestling match of the Festivus.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. You're black and blue.
Yeah.
Your family goes at it pretty hard.
We get all those
pent up, all the year's worth of anger.
That's right. We
out,
get it out
on each other.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and do our Patreon shout outs. We had Muhammad Sheik.
Hey, Muhammad.
Katie McCormick.
Hey, Katie from the McCormick Spice family.
Savannah McCoy.
Hey, Savannah, stay away from the Hatfields.
Mike Oxmall.
Hey, Oxmall.
Tracy Robbins.
There's Tracy.
Leah Levine.
Levine. I like that.
Charlie Ward.
Hey, Charlie.
Who won a Heisman back in the 80s or 90s.
I was thinking that, and then played for the Raiders or something, right?
I don't know about that. He played basketball for the Knicks. So.
Did he really?
Yeah, he was actually won a Heisman as a quarterback, but ended up playing professional basketball.
He's like me. He's one of those guys that did lettered in all sports.
Multi-talented. Yeah. Olivia.
What's going on, Olivia?
Allison Hardwick.
Hey, Allison.
And last but not least, Holly Lewis.
Hey, thanks, Holly.
In the news.
Oh, nice there. So I don't know if
Good
you're going to
pull.
go that, or if you're going to go like Clark, Lewis
and Clark. Then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Rosalind Rainey.
Hey, thanks, Rosalind.
Yeah, I appreciate the new Patreon support, the continued support. We also had a great PayPal donation from Ann Kelly.
Well, thanks, Ann.
So, Gibbs, right now we have a brand new episode out on True Crime All the Time Unsolved, where we're actually headed to Norway.
We are.
To talk about an unidentified woman who has become known as the Easdal woman. In 1970, the burned remains of a woman were found in a remote area of Norway's Easdalen Valley. And over 50 years later, They still have not identified this woman, and obviously don't know exactly what happened to her, if somebody did something to her, but we get into all the details.
Well, I'm excited. You know, I have a deep love for Norway
I know you do.
ever since sixth grade. So, you know, I'm excited to do this story.
Would you like to expand on that? Because it was very cryptic.
Oh, well, you know, as mentioned on Patreon.
Right, which most of these people are not going to have heard.
Well, that's true. Unless you jump over right now. But no, in sixth grade, we had to represent a country.
Mm-hmm.
And my country was Norway. And so we had like the, you know, Field Olympics, and we had to do their customary dance, you know, wear the
Traditional like outfit of the country. Oh man, if I had a video of a sixth grade Gibby dancing to some Norwegian song
with like clogs on or something.
it would, I could make a fortune.
It was good times.
All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am ready.
We're on to part 2 and the last part on serial killer Bruce McArthur. In part 1, we covered the police investigation and how McArthur was first identified in connection with missing men. In part 2, we'll cover the final disappearances in the gay village, how McArthur was finally caught, and his later court proceedings. On April 16, 2017, 44-year-old Salim Essen was last seen near Yonge and Bloor Streets in Toronto. The police believe he was killed on or about this day. And, you know, we said that multiple times about victims in episode 1. And I do think it's an interesting statement because it just shows you that, you know, this was a predator who struck and killed immediately or very quickly.
Yeah, he didn't toy around.
No, this was not a person who, you know, took his victim somewhere for days and kept them or, you know, anything like that. Essen was reported missing by a friend on April 30th. Salim Essen was born in Istanbul and grew up in Turkey, where he graduated from university. His older brothers said he was unhappy as a gay man in Turkey. Salim spent several years in Australia and moved to Canada in 2013 to marry his boyfriend. Their relationship didn't last, but Salim stayed in Toronto. And we're also hearing another common theme. You have some men here who were gay, but were living in countries or parts of the world where it was extremely hard, nearly impossible to be an openly gay man.
Probably somewhat dangerous too.
Very dangerous. Yeah. And so I think what a lot of these individuals did was, you know, they looked for areas of the world. They looked for countries. They looked for cities where they felt as though they could be themselves. He was described as friendly and curious. He wanted to learn new things and travel. Salim worked as a cafe manager and enjoyed studying philosophy in his free time. And I know, you know, you study a lot of philosophy.
I do.
In your free time.
Love it. Some people call me the philosopher.
Some people call you the BS artist. I don't know how different some of those things are.
There's a blurred line.
It's a very fine line, right? Salim was once a client at the St. Stephen's Community House in Toronto, which provides classes, counseling, and job placement services for new immigrants. He completed a training program and volunteered peer support. Richard Kaikot, who met Salim through the peer training program, said that at the time of his disappearance, he was confused, afraid, and believed something bad was going to happen to him.
It's a terrible feeling to have.
Well, it does seem like a worrisome combination, especially, you know, being afraid and feeling as though something bad was going to happen. Okay. Did that just come from nowhere? Or were there some things that had happened that, had instilled that fear in him? 2 months later, on June 26, 2017, 49-year-old Andrew Kinsman was last seen in Toronto's Cabbagetown neighborhood. Kinsman was a highly intelligent child chess prodigy, according to the CBC. His sister said he had a gruff demeanor, but he cared about social justice issues and wanted to help others. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've been fascinated with, chess.
Yeah.
I know how to play chess. I'm not very good at it. But, these people who are considered prodigies, I guess I'm fascinated by any prodigy, but chess in particular, when you think about like a Bobby Fischer,
right,
who as a kid was beating like these adults who were considered to be amazing chess players.
Right. Yeah.
It just blows my mind that somebody's, I guess, mind gets to the level where it works that way.
Just to think, 64 squares and all these pieces move different directions. And you're always thinking, multiple steps ahead. Just the concentration level.
Is there 64 squares?
Yeah.
I am really shocked that you knew that. Do you play a lot of chess?
Yeah, at a high level.
Okay. He enjoyed volunteering, baking, and camping. He spent decades working with the Toronto HIV/AIDS network and was involved in the city's LGBTQ community. Andrew was the superintendent of his apartment building in Cabbagetown. He had an elderly cat, so his friends were concerned when his cat was left alone for a full day after the annual Pride event. And we know how much, people love their animals. We talk about it a lot. Some people love their animals more than they like some humans,
Not a bad thing.
But if he was really attached to this cat, it's an elderly cat, it needs taken care of. Okay, to leave the cat alone for a full day, what does that mean to someone who really knows him? And I think, that's what you're looking at in some of the cases, right? That we do. Someone does something that's out of the ordinary for them, but what does it mean? Sometimes, friends are concerned immediately, others not so much. But it sounds like to me in this situation, this was a concerning thing.
Yeah, it sounds like he had a pretty set routine and he didn't follow it, and it caused concern.
Yeah. On June 29th, 2017, Andrew's neighbor reported him missing. The police would later say this was critical to their investigation because Andrew was reported missing within 72 hours. They were able to get surveillance video showing Andrew getting into a Dodge Caravan outside his apartment building. And we talked about it in episode 1, right? A number of people went missing. They weren't reported missing, though, for some time due to various circumstances. Well, what does that do to an investigation? Obviously, the later you get started after someone is thought to have last been seen, the harder it would be to, gather evidence, track their movements, all of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely going to hamper the process.
The police searched Kinsman's home and found the name Bruce written on his calendar on June 26th. A detective cross-referenced a list of vehicles that matched the description with owners named Bruce. There were only 5 matches, and Bruce McArthur was one of them. The other 4 men were eliminated because none of their vehicles had chrome siding, like the one in the surveillance video. So, again, this is fascinating, kind of old school police work, right? You got some surveillance footage of a car. All right, let's start looking at how many cars of that make and model are out there. They find this name Bruce, right? Let's cross-reference the cars with owners with the first name Bruce.
Just good detective work.
It really is. Now, is it tough? Is it hard? Is it painstaking? I'm sure it is, but that's how a lot of cases are solved.
Yeah, you got to do all that legwork to get to a good spot.
Well, it really sounds like they did. In July 2017, Bruce met a man named Sean Cribben on a dating app. Sean went to McArthur's apartment for sex. He agreed to BDSM role playing, but McArthur did not respect his limits or his safe word. According to the Toronto Star, McArthur cut off Sean's airway with his hand, his genitals, and by sitting on his chest. Sean said, "That's the only memory I have from it. Just this overall, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't breathe." Now, I think I said in episode 1, I don't have a vast knowledge of the BDSM world. But the one thing I do know is that it often involves a safe word. And, if you don't respect a safe word, okay, somebody is in for a bad time.
Yeah, it's a problem. What's your safe word? Is it Bosco still?
Yeah, Bosco. Why you would know that is beyond me.
I do my research.
But, here again, let's think about the position that this person, Sean, was in. If part of your sexual desires involve this role-playing BDSM, are you tied up? I think it often involves that, being restrained. You're in a very vulnerable position or situation.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be in a vulnerable situation. And if you're not okay with that, I think your anxiety would be pretty high.
Well, I think a lot of people are okay with being in the vulnerable situation. What they're not okay with, or what they wouldn't be okay with, is the other person taking advantage of them being in that vulnerable situation.
True. Yeah.
And doing things that they're not comfortable with, whether that's something sexual or something, more heinous, like, this guy trying to essentially strangulate Sean. Sean was also drugged with GHB and lost consciousness. He believes he survived because McArthur's roommate came back unexpectedly. And I can imagine, roommate walks in, it's going to be kind of a strange sight. You're going to have to explain what's going on unless the roommate knows what you're into.
Yeah, I remember the first time I shared that room with you and I came back early from dinner and you were in your diaper outfit.
You're really reaching now at this point. Now, if you just said furry costume, okay, maybe people would have believed you.
I couldn't even get that out with a straight face.
Sean told the BBC in a different interview, "When I came around, I saw him standing looking at me. He never made any reference to the fact I'd lost 20 minutes. I took it as a bad date." And, for me, I'm taking that to mean that he didn't think McArthur was trying to kill him at the time. I think later on, when he finds out who this guy is, it's probably pretty easy to see that he got lucky. A detective later contacted him and told him they found an image of him on McArthur's hard drive. He'd put a hood over my head and duct tape over my eyes. His hand was over a pipe jammed up against my throat, and he took a photograph. That happened during the 20 minutes. I mean, that's some real scary stuff.
It is. And then you would want to know, where was that headed?
Well, I think it was headed in the worst possible direction if the roommate doesn't come home. I think McArthur kills this guy.
I agree with you.
A GHB dealer identified as Joey told the BBC about visiting McArthur's apartment to consensually use the drug and have sex with him. He said he had some G for both of us. It started to feel real creepy. He was asking me odd questions like, was I close to my family? Do I have brothers and sisters? In hindsight, he was probably seeing if anybody would miss me. if I went missing. I told him, I'm not feeling well, so I'm just going to go. There was no life in his eyes. He looked evil to me. So here's a guy who really got a bad sense of the situation, and probably luckily for him, he did, because he was able to, make that decision to get out of there.
Which we know many people did not have that option.
Yeah, never got to that point. On August 14, 2017, the police established a task force called Project Prism to investigate the disappearances of Salim Essen and Andrew Kinsman. On September 6th, the Toronto police began tracking Bruce McArthur's movements. On the 8th, the police used McArthur's name in their request to seal a production order for the service provider Bell Canada. And a production order, I guess, in Canada is just an order compelling a person or company to provide records, right? They're trying to get phone records. On the 14th, the police obtained a tracking warrant for 2 of McArthur's vehicles. On September 16th, McArthur sold his maroon Dodge Caravan to Dom's Auto Parts outside Toronto. And I think if you're the police, you have to be looking at that as kind of a telltale sign.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, could it be that this guy just happened to make the decision that he wanted to sell this Dodge Caravan? Well, sure, it could be. But could it also be that he knew there was most likely evidence in it and he just wanted to get rid of it? He wanted to end his connection with it.
Very possible.
Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like they're 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. On October 3rd, investigators went to Dom's Auto Parts looking for the Dodge. Auto shop owner Dominic Vitier confirmed Bruce sold the car to him in September. The vehicle had 243,000 kilometers on it, and the shop bought it for $125.
Wow.
When the police showed up on October 3rd, they asked for surveillance footage and towed the vehicle. Now, the shop workers said they never saw any blood in the vehicle, but the police still needed to do a detailed forensic investigation.
Yeah, because sometimes, even though you don't see any blood, doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, we've definitely heard of that before. On October 24th, the police obtained a production order for data from the user Squirt on a gay hookup site. They have reason to believe McArthur, Kinsman, Essen, and Navaratnam had accounts on the site. And we kind of talked about this a little bit in episode 1. This is one of the ways that they linked Bruce to some of these men. On October 2nd, 2017, investigators obtained tracking warrants for 2 cell phone numbers used by McArthur. The warrant application stated that the police were developing a plan to invite McArthur to the station for an interview as a person of interest in hopes it would incite him to reach out to another person or take actions that could help locate Andrew Kinsman.
I can see how that could happen. Sometimes people make phone calls after their interview.
Or maybe they might get so scared that they would, go to a location where a person's being held or move a body or any number of things.
It's true.
On November 8th, McArthur officially became a suspect in Kinsman's murder after traces of his blood were found in the van. Salim Essen's DNA was also found in the van. So, obviously these were big breaks, right, in the case. Now, if you're thinking trial down the road, what is a defense attorney going to have to put out there to counteract this type of evidence?
Well, he knew the guys. They had a relationship, sexual relationship.
And maybe they had, sex in the van.
Down by the river?
Down by the river. The following day, a mobile surveillance unit restarted covert surveillance of McArthur. On November 17, 2017, cadaver dogs searched the area behind 53 Mallory Crescent, a house where McArthur stored landscaping equipment, but there were no results. On December 5th, the police obtained a general warrant to covertly enter McArthur's apartment to clone data from his devices. Investigators did enter the apartment, but had to leave quickly because an unnamed person was on the way home. On the 7th, police returned to McArthur's apartment for just over an hour, but had to leave because McArthur was on his way home. The police were able to obtain swabs of an orange stain on McArthur's pillow and a metal bar wrapped with tape. They also found Post-it notes with website account names and passwords. I know that's how you have always kept your account names and passwords. I've told you repeatedly, it's not a very safe way to do it, especially when you used to tape them, just on the side of your monitor where everybody could see them. These were not business sites. These were clearly personal sites. This was back in the days when companies didn't really track your internet usage.
Oh, yeah.
So much at work. Or they didn't have the ability to block you from getting to certain websites.
The good old days.
You never knew what you'd see when you passed by Gibby's cubicle.
Just keep walking if you don't like what you see.
When looking through McArthur's computer data, investigators found over 100 photos of Andrew Kinsman. Some of the photos dated back to 2007. In the middle of the investigation, during a December 8th news conference, the Toronto police told the public they had no evidence of a serial killer in the gay village.
So why would they say that?
Yeah, maybe they didn't want to scare people. Obviously, they thought McArthur had done some things, right? They were keeping an eye on him. He was in their crosshairs, but maybe they didn't think he had done enough to be considered a serial killer. I don't know. On December 11, 2017, the police installed a hidden camera to capture the garage door of 53 Mallory Crescent, the house belonging to McArthur's landscaping client. On January 17, 2018, the police found critical evidence linking McArthur to Salim Essen and Andrew Kinsman's disappearances. Photos of the two men and other victims were found on McArthur's devices. All of the men were deceased in these photos and posed in a fur coat or with the murder weapon wrapped around their throat. McArthur attempted to delete these photos, but they were uncovered through forensic analysis. So there's a couple of things here. One we've talked about many times, which is just because you think you've deleted something doesn't mean the police won't be able to recover it. The second for me is, not only has he committed a number of murders, but for some reason he felt compelled to take pictures of these men after they were dead. I mean, this is bombshell type evidence, right? That you're creating. It's not that you're leaving hair behind and you don't know about it. You know you're taking these pictures. You also know you don't have to.
But you're still doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like he was compelled. Additionally, photos of the surviving assault victim from 2016 were also found on McArthur's devices. In some of them, the man was wearing a fur coat that looked similar to the one the deceased victims were wearing. And remember, we talked about a fur coat in episode 1. He had a fur coat laid out in his van and attempted, I think, to kill someone in the van, but that person got away. So there's something with this fur coat. Investigators also saw that on April 7, 2017, McArthur emailed himself a photo of Skanda Navaratnam, the first known victim. On January 18, 2018, Bruce McArthur was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Andrew Kinsman and Salim Essen. Detective Sergeant Hank Nsinga told the public, is quoted by the CBC, "We believe he's responsible for the deaths of Mr. Essen and Mr. Kinsman, and we believe he is responsible for the deaths of other men who have yet to be identified." Okay, so they came out and they said, we don't have a serial killer in the gay village, or we don't have evidence. I think at this point, that has changed. If you're saying we're charging him with 2 murders and we believe that he's killed other men, but then you're talking about a serial killer.
You are.
Nsinga revealed McArthur and Kinsman had a sexual relationship for some time, but police didn't know if McArthur had a relationship of any kind with Salim Essen. McArthur was arrested while attempting to murder another victim.
Wow.
On the morning of January 18th, a man named John met him at the apartment. They connected on a dating app in the summer of 2017 and had sex several times. Before this, McArthur asked John if anyone knew he was coming over, and John said no. McArthur said he wanted to try something different. McArthur handcuffed John and put a leather bag over his head. John was able to get the bag off, and McArthur attempted to tape his mouth shut. Because McArthur was under surveillance, officers saw a man go into the building and went to the apartment to make the arrest. John was found restrained in the bedroom. So, here again, when this guy finds out later the full extent of what Bruce McArthur had done, how lucky does he have to feel?
Oh, I think he has to feel extremely lucky.
That he really dodged probably death.
Probably very thankful when they came and knocked on the door that day.
But I also talked about putting yourself or allowing yourself to be put in a very compromising position. Well, being handcuffed, being restrained, it doesn't get a whole lot more compromising than that.
You would know.
Yeah, the difference is mine's all been recreational. Yours has been law enforcement mandated. As we mentioned, forensic analysis showed that McArthur had a folder of photos for each of the 8 known victims. He also downloaded photos of John from social media and saved them in a 9th folder. There was also a photo of John on his bed. By all indications, it seems like McArthur intended for John to be the next victim. So not only is he killing, a large number of men, he's really kind of keeping a treasure trove of evidence pointing to, his involvement with these men. And in some cases, really pointing to the fact that he killed these men.
Sure.
I mean, how do you get a photo of them deceased if you weren't involved with them dying? John is Middle Eastern, like several of the victims. He's married and kept his sexuality secret from his family and friends. And it does seem like there were a lot of these guys kept their sexuality secret from either wives or, family. Is that something that McArthur looked for? He was asking these guys, does anybody know you're here? Do you keep in contact with your family? There's no doubt he was trying to gauge whether or not some of these individuals would be missed.
Yeah, I mean, they sound like the prime screening questions for what would make the best victim for him.
On the day of his arrest, investigators also said they secured 5 properties connected to McArthur, including his apartment, a house connected to a friend in Scarborough, a property connected to this same friend in Maddock, a house in Midtown Toronto where McArthur worked as a landscaper, and another address in Toronto. So he didn't own 5 properties, but obviously he had some association with all 5, one of them being his apartment. One of these properties was the house on Mallory Crescent that had been under surveillance. The couple who owned the home went away for weekends in the spring and summer. Bruce stored his equipment here and did house sitting. While the couple was away, McArthur had keys to their house. And it was this home, Gibbs, that was the location of most of his criminal activity. And there's 2 thoughts that I have about that. Number one, it's fairly smart, right? That's a better idea than to bring these men back to your apartment.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And then the other thing was that, okay, if you're the people that own this house, eventually it's going to come out that this man who you trusted to kind of house sit was killing people inside your home while you were away.
Not a good situation to be in.
No, and I would think for some, it's going to be hard to continue to live there, after learning about that. In the case of Abdul Basir Faizi, his abandoned vehicle was found just about a kilometer from this house. On one occasion, the owners returned home and found the dark stain on their bedroom floor. McArthur told them that he spilled the coke and tried to clean it. Homeowner Karen Fraser recalled that McArthur once brought victim Majid Kayan to the house, and she had seen him working with younger Middle Eastern men. She told the CBC that McArthur had wonderful clients, and he was kind and generous to them. He was a cheerful, kind grandfather and made her laugh with his client stories.
The other personality.
The one that he wanted others to see.
Yes.
McArthur was questioned after he was arrested. He claimed he had not seen Andrew Kinsman since December 2016. When he viewed a photo of Salim Essen, he said he looked like a man he randomly met and befriended in 2017, but he didn't remember his name. He said he picked him up in the area of the gay village and took him back to his apartment. They had sex and the man left. And we talked about this just a little bit ago, right? This is, you would think, going to be kind of central in any type of defense for Bruce McArthur. Yes, I was active on, these dating apps or these dating websites. I had sex with a lot of different men, but that doesn't mean I killed them.
No, it doesn't.
Now you're going to have to explain why you have photos of their dead bodies and things like that. The police executed the search warrant on the Mallory Crescent house from January 21st to the 26th. They removed plastic crates and bins, a suitcase, and a hacksaw. Search warrants from January 2018 identified Saroush Mahmoudi and Majid Kayan as two more victims. On January 29th, 2018, McArthur was charged with 3 more counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Kayan, Mahmoudi, and Dean Lisowicz. The police revealed they found dismembered remains of at least 3 people in the bottom of large planters at the house on Mallory Crescent. And this was the first time the police called McArthur a serial killer.
They're finally coming to realize what he's done.
Or they're finally willing to admit to the public, one or the other. But think about, they find a hacksaw, and then it's discovered that the remains of 3 people were buried in these planters at the house of these people that he kind of house set for, where he stored some of his equipment. Yeah, you're going to have to sell that house. You're not going to be able to live in that house. Also, you're going to take a beating on that house because nobody's going to pay what it's worth.
No, not with the rumors going around about it.
And I don't know about you. I go back to this, spilling of Coke on a rug or a carpet. I think most of us have done that.
Oh, I spill stuff all the time.
You do.
Sprite.
You are clumsy as shit.
Sprite in my at then boss's car.
But think about a Coke. Okay, it's dark liquid, but if you get on it, you can clean that up.
Yeah, most cases, sure.
I mean, is it the same as a kind of a large blood pool? And I would say no. That's a little harder to clean up than a spilled Coke. But again, you have to come up with something, or you can't tell the truth. I murdered someone in your home and, this is their blood.
Well, you could tell the truth, but it wouldn't go well for you.
Yeah, I guess you could, but not if you're into self-preservation. In January 2018, the Alliance for South Asian AIDS Prevention issued an open letter calling for the Toronto Police Service to review whether the racial or sexual backgrounds of the men affected the resources or effort put into investigating their disappearances. The group also demanded an external review. The letter stated, "It's saddening and unacceptable that it took the disappearance of Andrew Kinsman to reopen public interest in the cases of the missing South Asian and Middle Eastern men." So basically, this letter was suggesting that it wasn't until Andrew Kinsman disappeared that the disappearances were finally taken seriously. The letter said that a different standard of justice for racialized and LGBTQ plus people is the reality of our city and province. And Gibbs, how many times has this come up in the cases that we've done where, a charge is levied against the police that they didn't do as much as they should have. They didn't put, the resources into the investigation that they should have because of the backgrounds of the victims or the people who had gone missing.
Yeah, I think it comes up a lot more frequent than most would realize.
Yeah, or like to believe.
Yes.
Whether it's race, whether it's, where someone hails from, or whether it's what someone does for a living. We have seen pretty concrete examples that, have kind of proven out that police didn't do what they might have done if the person was someone else. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time, but it does happen. Even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details.
Hey, listeners, it's Leon Nafok. I'm here to tell you about a brand new series from me and Prologue Projects, an Audible original series called Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer, the story of a television show that changed the world and the man who gave it his name. But did you know that before the Jerry Springer Show made him notorious all over the world, Springer was something else entirely? A respected Midwestern politician, the progressive mayor of a major Rust Belt city, a man many saw as a future leader in Democratic politics. How did this idealistic rising star, with his lofty political ambitions, take a turn in such a radically different direction? You can find the whole series available now on Audible. Just search for Final Thoughts, Jerry Springer on the Audible app, or go to audible.com/Springer.
Toronto police spokesman Megan Gray said investigators worked diligently throughout Project Houston to find the missing men. In a February 2018 interview with CBC, lead investigator Detective Sergeant Hake Idzinga was asked if the police considered a possible serial killer during Project Houston, which was in operation from 2012 to 2014. He responded, "To be accused of not considering that is in effect not accurate. We're human beings. Of course, are we thinking, is that a possibility?" He said at the time, there was no evidence of foul play involved in the disappearances, adding, "I wish we had that evidence in 2013. I wish we could have stopped it in 2013. And I'm sure that's a truthful statement. Would they have liked to have stopped it before many more people were killed? Absolutely.
Yes.
And I think, part of his statement does shed some light on, okay, yeah, was there talk about a possible serial killer? Was that part of the thinking? Yes. But when they didn't even have evidence of foul play in the disappearances, it's pretty hard to come out and say, hey, I think we have a serial killer here.
Yeah.
Because we don't even know what happened to these individuals.
That's true.
But once the evidence is obtained, it's pretty easy.
And then you can change your statement then.
Yeah. On February 8th, 2018, the police announced that the remains of 3 more people were found in planters at the Mallory Crescent house, bringing the total to 6 victims. One set of remains was identified as Andrew Kinsman. On February 16th, police documents identified Skandara Navaratnam and Abdul Basir Faizi as 2 more victims of McArthur. On February 23rd, McArthur was charged with the first-degree murder of Navaratnam after authorities confirmed his remains were among those found in the planters. Sarush Mahmoudi's remains were also identified. So, first of all, it doesn't seem as though he went to a great extent to get rid of these remains. Yes, sounds like he dismembered them. He buried them in planters. Did he think anyone was going to find them in the planters? No, probably not. But could he have done a better job of, hiding them, really getting kind of rid of them? And I would say yes. Yeah. I'm glad he didn't.
No, but he could have.
Yeah. On March 5th, 2018, the police announced they discovered a 7th set of human remains in the planters at the Mallory Crescent home. During a news conference later that day, the police released a photo of a deceased man found on McArthur's computer. This was kind of a last resort to try to figure out the man's identity. So police are finding remains of people that they're linking to McArthur, but they're also finding pictures of dead people on his computer.
Which has to be strange.
Well, it has to make the police wonder, how many people did this guy really kill? Because we only know about the ones that, we've tied to him. We found remains, but you've got pictures on the computer. At least one of the individuals not identified was dead in the picture. I'm sure there was many more pictures on there. Could he have killed others, but just didn't take a picture of their body after death?
Strong possibility.
Well, it's got to be a big question, right? What's the true number? What's the count? How many murders did this man commit? On April 4th, 2018, the police obtained a production order for McArthur's probation records from 2003. In their application, the police noted their efforts to track McArthur's movements throughout his adulthood were hindered by his ex-wife and son's unwillingness to talk to the police.
It's going to make the police think they know something about it.
Yeah, I could see how police would think that. The other thing is, do you really want your ex-husband to be a serial killer? Do you want your dad to be a serial killer? Because what's that going to do to your life?
Well, maybe some of our listeners might want that, because their love for true crime.
Might want their exes to be found out to be serial killers.
Or maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe they hate them so much that they want it because of that.
Well, that's a good
But you think about, now you're the ex-wife of a serial killer.
Yeah.
You're the son of a serial killer. So are you really wanting to help with the investigation all that much? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
On April 11, 2018, McArthur was charged with the murder of Abdul Basir Faizi, bringing the total to 7 charges against him. Faizi's remains had been identified along with the remains of Salim Essen and Dean Lisowick. In an April 12 search warrant, the police wrote they had no evidence to suggest anyone assisted McArthur with the murders. On April 16th, McArthur was charged with the murder of Krushna Kumar Kanagaratnam, whose remains had been identified. He was first identified as the deceased man in the photo. That was released in March. On May 7th, 2018, after the ground thawed, the police sent out cadaver dog teams to investigate 100 properties linked to McArthur's landscaping work. And we haven't even talked about that.
No, we haven't.
This guy's a landscaper. He's working for all kinds of people. Could he have buried a body part here, there, scattered them over a number of different properties where he was doing landscaping work?
Yeah, probably pretty easily. It's kind of
macabre to think about, but that your landscaper is using your property to dispose of their victims. The police completed their inch-by-inch search of McArthur's apartment on May 15th. They collected over 1,800 pieces of evidence in what was the largest forensic examination in Toronto police history. So, this was an absolutely huge investigation, but it had to be, right? Here's a man who was linked to the deaths and thought to be a serial killer of at least 7 people.
Yeah.
Possibly 8 people. When searching McArthur's bedroom, the police found duct tape, a glove, rope, zip ties, a black bungee cord, and syringes. They also found Dean Lisowick's beaded necklace, Salim Essen's personal notebook, and Skanda Navaratnam's bracelet in the apartment.
That's a pretty good find.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff here that, people would say, well, I have that stuff in my house. And I do. I have duct tape. I've got gloves. I think I even have some zip ties. I probably got bungee cords.
I know. I keep all those in a nice little bag in my trunk.
Yeah, I keep them in like a toolbox in separate areas. They're not like in a to-go bag.
Oh.
Like they are for you.
Yeah.
But I don't know when I'm going to need duct tape or zip ties or whatever. But when you start finding known items
Yeah.
of the victims. Okay. Could you make a case that, oh, well, the person left it here, we had a sexual relationship? Yes, the defense could try to make that case, but the evidence is mounting, right? And it's mounting pretty high
Yeah.
at this point.
I think the prosecutor would be happy with all this, and obviously the defense would be getting really nervous.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But, I also, I don't understand why so many killers feel the need to keep these trophies. I get it. They use them. They get some kind of thrill. They're able to relive through them what they've done. But you are really condemning yourself if any of this stuff is found. You're taking a big chance.
A huge risk.
But is risk part of the equation for some of these people?
Oh, for sure. It's what gets their heart beating.
I was kind of going to go the other way.
Yeah.
And say, well, if they were so worried about it, they wouldn't do what they're doing in the first place. But yeah, maybe there's a little bit of both.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Maybe the risk, the excitement is part of what they're doing. The fur coat used to pose the victims after death was found in a hidden compartment of McArthur's van. On June 1st, 2018, K-9 units completed their search of 100 properties, including the Mallory Crescent home. In July 2018, the Toronto Police launched the service's first ever dedicated missing persons unit after facing public scrutiny over how the missing men's cases were handled.
So some good comes out of it.
Well, some good came out of it in this instance. You would hope that it would carry forward.
Yeah.
That, nothing like that would ever happen again. On July 4th, the police began excavating the forested ravine behind the Mallory Crescent home. And man, what are you thinking if you're these people that own this home? First of all, they've probably dug up the whole place.
Yeah.
It looks like they just have like thousands of moles, probably in the yard. You got packs of cadaver dogs that have searched the whole place. They're digging. Now they're excavating behind the house.
I think I'd be on the phone with my agent. Hey, this house you sold me, I'm not sure if I really want to stay here anymore.
Well, but what choice do you have?
Yeah.
You can't sell a house that's being checked for body parts and they're every day finding a new body part.
Yeah. You're not gonna have a great,
That's like the scene from Step Brothers when they're trying to sell the house and they're doing everything they can to scare away the potential buyers.
Oh, those are some great scenes right there.
On July 5th, the police confirmed they found more human remains in the area. Back in May, K-9 units indicated human body parts were buried there. So this is the excavation behind the house. The excavation ended on July 12th. Investigators revealed they found human remains nearly every day of the search. On July 20th, the remains found in the ravine were identified as Majid Cayenne. So the search lasts a week, let's say 7 days or so. Every day, they're finding human remains. Now, it makes it sound like these were all remains of Cayenne. So does that just mean his remains were scattered all over the property?
That's what it sounds like.
During a news conference, lead investigator Idzinga said they had no reason to believe they would find the remains of any more victims at any of the properties they searched. And I don't know, Gibbs, if that was based off of all of the work the cadaver dogs had did. They probably felt pretty confident that they had found everything they were going to find.
Yeah.
It did check 100 properties.
It's a lot of properties.
It is. On October 22nd, 2018, McArthur waived his right to a preliminary inquiry and was ordered to stand trial. On November 30th, a judge announced his trial would begin January 6, 2020, and would likely take 3 to 4 months. So that's over a year. And I get it. Both sides need time to prepare and all of that, but
It is a long time.
it is a long time. We often see that in big trials, though. But this trial would never happen. On January 29th, 2019, Bruce McArthur pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder. His guilty plea resulted in an automatic life sentence. And why would he do that?
Well, maybe he just wants to go ahead and get the clock ticking.
Get the clock ticking on what? The end of his life?
But does a life sentence always mean life sentence?
Not in Canada. It doesn't. I would hope in this case it would, but I don't know. I just had this thought that I get it. There's so much evidence against you, but you're not going to get more than a life sentence in Canada, right? So why not roll the dice? Maybe he just was tired of it all. Didn't want to sit through a trial. I don't know. On February 4th and 5th, the Crown read a 36-page statement of facts during the sentencing hearing, which revealed shocking details to the public. The murders involved sexual assault or forcible confinement, and McArthur murdered victims via ligature strangulation. Afterwards, he engaged in post-offense rituals, such as posing the victims and dressing them. He took hundreds of photos of dead victims with a rope around their neck cinched with a bar.
So weird.
And the victims were posed nude. Some had cigars in their mouth, shaved, or with a fur coat and hat. Some photos were taken in his bedroom or vehicle. The murders were planned and deliberate, producing a uniformity in the way they were executed. McArthur dismembered the victims and buried them at his client's property. He kept souvenirs from the victims, such as jewelry and notebooks, and kept digital files of all the victims, categorizing them into subfolders.
That is so shocking.
But is it? I mean, we've seen serial killers, keep so much incriminating stuff. Now, I think this digital file thing is a little different for me. He's got photos, he's got who knows what else in these files on his computer kept in subfolders.
Yeah.
Like we would keep spreadsheets or, monthly expenses.
But it's such a risk to have that on there. I mean, you can encrypt it, I guess, but most of these agencies, police department, IT people, they're pretty darn smart. They know how to break a lot of that encryption stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you do that stuff for a living, yeah, you get pretty good at it. The police also found a metal bar and a rope used in the murders, which signaled McArthur's desire to keep the weapons despite their incriminating nature. And it did sound, Gibbs, to me as though he was almost using like this rope and the bar as kind of a garrote.
Yeah.
And maybe twisting the bar to tighten and strangle his victims. On February 8th, 2019, Bruce McArthur was sentenced to life with no parole for at least 25 years. The judge noted it's highly unlikely McArthur will ever walk free. And this guy should never walk free.
No, he should not.
But we've talked about it, right? Canada's a little more lenient when it comes to sentencing sometimes than we are here in the US. But I think when you have a guy like Bruce McArthur and the evidence is so strong and the murder count is so high, I get it. He may come up for parole in 25 years, but the parole board is going to look at what he did and say, no way, buddy.
Yeah.
You ain't getting out.
You're staying right where you're at.
Or they're going to give him a day pass and let him go in to town shopping. I don't know. We've seen some different types of things, right, in other countries. But I don't think that will happen with McArthur. The judge told McArthur that his crimes were pure evil, but cited his guilty plea, which spared the victims' families from going through a traumatic trial, and his age as his reason to grant parole. So apparently the judge could have said no parole. Now, I think it is important to point out, right? The guy was in his 70s. So maybe that was part of it's highly unlikely McArthur will ever walk free, because he's probably not going to make it 25 more years.
Yeah. Unlikely.
But this sparing the families from going through a trial, I think for some families that could be a huge thing, to not have to hear all the really horrible details of what happened to their loved ones. Now, there could be some families or family members who think, no, I don't want to let this guy off the hook. I want him to face the prosecution. The judge noted that McArthur showed no remorse, adding Bruce McArthur is a sexual predator and killer who lured his victims and ended up killing them for his own warped and sick gratification.
Spot on.
Yeah, I think it is for a lot of killers. After the proceedings were over, Toronto's LGBTQ community accused the police of not doing enough to catch the killer. Chief Mark Saunders said they might have caught McArthur sooner if residents of the gay village were more forthcoming. We knew that people were missing, and we knew we didn't have the right answers, but nobody was coming to us with anything. And, this was a statement that was not well received.
I bet.
I mean, and it sounds pretty harsh, right? Hey, we could have caught him, but nobody in the community came forward to help us.
Yeah.
Now, is there a reason that some people in that community would not want to come forward? We've already said it. Some of the victims were married.
That's true. And some of them came from some very unfriendly countries.
Countries who were very unfriendly to gay people.
Exactly.
Very intolerant. So maybe, they had that kind of seared into their mind. As we wrap this one up, Gibbs, Bruce McArthur is often cited as an unusual serial killer, mostly due to his age. And this guy was killing at a grandfatherly age, like well into a grandfather, maybe a great grandfatherly age. Crime experts say that, most serial killers start murdering victims in their mid to late 30s. This guy was, he started when he was in his 60s, I think. So for that reason, it's a little strange. Now, does it mean he didn't murder a bunch of people 30 years prior? No, we don't know. We never know. But at that age, he was working as a traveling salesman. And I think that alone has raised the possibility of additional victims throughout the Ontario province, right? When you're traveling around, would it be a little bit easier to get away with some of these crimes?
I think so.
Yeah. You're kind of blowing in and out of town. According to the National Post, local police have been advised to go back through their unsolved cases from 20, 30 years ago. Bruce McArthur took the lives of 8 men. Several of the victims came from marginalized groups. This is a guy who lived a double life for many, many years. To most people, he was this friendly landscaper. But as we heard from survivors who had encounters with McArthur, he had a real dark side and an inner rage that could be deadly. And I think the same thing can be said about many, many serial killers.
Oh, for sure.
Your family sees you one way. Your friends see you a certain way. But it's not going to be usually the way that your victims are going to see you. You can't show that dark side to, the people you live with day in and day out.
No, you can't. Or you shouldn't.
Well, you can't do it and expect to go unnoticed. Now, you think about Dexter. I bring Dexter up a lot, but Dexter had to learn how to blend in, right? He was terrible at showing emotion. He had to learn to fake it. And I think a lot of these killers have to learn some of those types of things because they don't want to get caught.
They don't.
Most of them. right? If you get caught, you can't keep doing the sick stuff that you want to do.
No, you cannot.
But that's it for our episode on Bruce McArthur. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
I love hearing those.
All right.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. My name's Victoria. I've been listening since 2017. But I won't bother you with all that. Sorry if it's loud because I'm at work. I listen to you guys at work. I'm a welder. But I just had to call you guys, first-time caller, because I have officially been traumatized. Nothing normally bothers me, but I was listening to your William K. Dean story on Unsolved. And normally, at the end of every Unsolved one, y'all give, the website or whatever if you have information on the case. Well, I never look them up, but where this one was so old, I decided to look it up. And there's just pictures of this deceased man on that website. And that's just, I wasn't prepared. And that's all. But love you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. I love this show. It's the only podcast I listen to, and I love true crime. But thanks. Keep your own time ticking. Bye.
All right. Thanks for the voicemail. I probably should have put that on Unsolved. You do have to be careful in your research.
Yeah, you do.
Because, the interwebs out there's a lot of crazy stuff.
There is. You never know what you're going to get when you click sometimes.
Yeah, what you're going to stumble upon.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. My name's Sarah, and I'm calling from Australia. Just to let you guys know that I've been on a 9-hour car ride from South Australia all the way to New South Wales. I've got 3 hours left of my car ride. And I have gone through about 5 podcasts already. I started at Matthew Owens, and I've gotten through quite a lot. It's been a wild ride. Love the podcast, by the way. The amount of research that must go into them is absolutely phenomenal. I hope you guys have a wonderful Christmas and keep your own time ticking. Bye.
9-hour drive.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
It is. It is. Can take quite a while, right, to get across Australia. But you know what I will say? I think Australian is my favorite accent.
Yeah.
I just love it. Not yours, so please don't do it.
You sure?
I'm positive, because that wasn't even a good one. But I just love, and they're different, right? Just
they are.
Depending on where you are in Australia, just like ours are here in the U.S., but I just like that accent so much. All right, we had some mailbag this week. Donna Paduano sent us a big Christmas box, and it had a bunch of Harley tokens in it, some Twizzlers for you, and then also TCAT Christmas ornaments and mugs that were handmade for both you and I.
Very nice.
Yeah. So thank you, Donna, very much. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Running a business is hard work. Building your website shouldn't be. With Wix, you can express your ideas, give direction, then leave the heavy lifting to AI. From site creation to branded content and images. Have fun with the details. Customize what you want the way you want. And manage your whole business from a centralized dashboard with expert AI tools. Build, scale, and enjoy the incredible results. You can do it all yourself on Wix.